Welcome to a different perspective on life. I'm your host, Dr. Charles Udon II. If you desire to make a comment on the show, please feel free to email me at adpolife@gmail.com. That's adpolife@gmail.com. Today we have Pastor Demetrius Kelly and Mr. Bibbins online. Gentlemen, say hi to the guest. Hello? Hello?
Yeah. Good evening. Good morning. Good evening, everybody.
Okay. Today, we're going to talk about the high crime that's in the communities.
All right.
And,
Yeah.
and Pastor Kelly, you said that bothered you?
Say that again.
You said that bothered you about the high crimes in the community affecting us as African American, how the police are getting off?
Well, it's not so much as what's troubling. I'm not going to say it's bothering, but it's troubling to a degree where we have a lot of violence that's on the high rise in regards to a lot of the police officers being removed um, for whatever reason, whether it be funding, defunding, but it's causing a ripple effect in the community. And if you don't have, saying, and I understand, there's police brutality and stuff like that, but if you don't have enough resources in the police office to help out, then you're going to have a barbaric state or a barbaric town, city, in regards to the lack of police officers.
I see. So, how do you feel about that personally, Pastor Kelly?
Well, I feel that personally, it's sad and it's a shame because we already have, homicide at a real high rate right now.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, that it brings concerns because that affects the teenagers, that affects the middle age, and it affects the elderly as well.
I see.
Having all this high crime going on, this mass shooting and killing that's taking place.
Now,
It's of a great concern.
Go ahead.
The governor and the mayors, they need to get together as well as the chief of police, they need to get together and they need to figure this out because there's going to be pandemonium within the inner cities.
Well, do you think this is by design or what?
Say that again?
Do you think this is by design or what?
I sort of kind of think it's by design.
Uh-huh.
Because, to me, that's like another form of genocide.
I see.
To some degree, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Now, Mr. Bibbins,
I agree with you.
Go ahead,
I agree with you at that point.
Now, Mr. Bibbins, how do you feel about it?
I agree totally with Pastor Kelly because due to the fact that what is happening, what it seems to be happening is there has been a change in the narrative. They flipped the narrative. The narrative was we have all these men in blue here to protect you. But what was happening, it was not revealed until the pandemic hit. What was happening was it was a carte blanche card for them to go out and do damage. You didn't hear about a lot of the community problems unless they were perpetrating it in that community.
I see.
So what you're looking at was a switch in the narrative. It was to some degree, and I'm not saying the entire force is corrupt or anything like that, but there are bad apples in every bunch. And so there were a few that were going out and under the guise of not having to report all these, or they looked as though these crimes weren't occurring in the community. They actually were, but they were at the hands of the police. So now that the focus is switched back for all these woke people, we're looking at the same thing as you're looking at, but we're getting a different perspective on what you're very
I see. Now, do you think the police is the cause of these young guys out here killing each other? You think they have something to do with it, or just you think these guys are just going, off the, like the young people say, just off the chain, off the hook?
I would say it began from the cradle to the grave
I see.
because the first initial contact you will get is in your hometown house and where you live in your on your home front. That's where your information comes in. Eventually, you'll be able to filter in other pieces of information, right, wrong, or indifferent. But you'll be able to rather filter that. Hopefully, you won't filter it to the degradation and destruction of some other person's existence on the wonderful planet we all are destined to share. And so, with that being said, you got a few people out there, but they've been indoctrinated that with that filter. They got it, man. You get through high school and not have to confront anybody and have their paper name thrown up in the newspapers for saying the N word. But it goes. I mean, through an entire lifetime because if no individual has not changed. For instance, there were people on a show that I watched recently that had knowledge of the bombing of 16th Street Church of Birmingham,
Okay.
but they were so arrogant about it. It was like, as far as we're concerned, it didn't happen.
I see.
As far as they're concerned, it didn't happen. Just as if this election was rigged, as they say, the big lie. So yeah, I'm totally in agreement because the narrative has been fed to us all this time. But when the narrative was flipped back and everybody was scraping and getting by just by a margin because they didn't know what was going to happen. This thing reaching out and snatching folks. Took 666,000 people,
Right.
and it leveled the playing field. But now the narrative switched back to this is what we should have been getting all along.
I see.
So they would hide. They were throwing rocks and hiding their hands.
Well, let me ask you a
So
question.
now all of this stuff that you perpetrated against Black African American and people of color, we're not out for retribution. We're out for our 40 acres of the view. We're not out for retribution. So calm yourself down. We understand where your thoughts might be, but you don't have to filter them to that area.
I see.
You follow what I'm saying?
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Bibbins. When I was
Go ahead.
coming up, I was born in '68, and when I was coming up, they had a law in some states. Well, I wouldn't say where I lived at. You couldn't chastise your kids or whipping them, And some of the older people, like my grandparents, they would state you can't have you pass a law you can't whip your kids. But like my uncle was saying, my grandmother would say, I'm gonna whip mine. So do you think that has a lot to do with it? That sparing the rod in the household when the child is young.
I got the same lesson. My mama beat our asses, okay? and she wasn't. I mean, I'm tall. I'm 6'2". My mother came up to my chin, but she told me, she said, "Look here, boy, don't you get smart with me. I will take that axe over there in the ham. Child abuse. I will take that axe in the corner and chop your legs from under you, beat you to death with them, and throw your dead body out with it." Now that is some killing right there. But my mama said, "I'll beat your ass."
I see.
And she did just that. 2 male children were raised, and we got the law applied. So she would always tell us, "Well, if I'm not going to let you go around here and get wild, and that some of those police out there kill you in the street." And that was what my mama was telling me back over 60 years ago. And so I heard what she said, and I noticed the abuse from the police. So the narrative could have been in this woke state that we're in way back when. But our parents recognized, we ain't trying to have these Negro boys snatched up and hung on a tree to be strange fruit.
Right.
Everybody can run around and be intimidated even that much more. Hell to the no.
Right.
Get them up, get them educated, and if necessary, get them out of the area because it's dangerous for the white hooded marauders to come through the neighborhood and see a male child walking along the
I see. Now, let me ask you a question, Pastor Kelly.
That
Now,
was what I grew up with.
right. Now, Pastor Kelly, also may ask you. Now, say for instance, our kids know right from wrong, they mind their own business, but therefore, I heard that a police officer shot a kid one time. I think a 12-year-old kid or a 13-year-old kid, and I think he was mentally challenged, but by playing with a not a BB gun, but I think a water gun. See what I'm saying? Now, when the police should have asked questions first before shooting,
Right.
but they shot the kid down, So what do you think about
Well,
that, Pastor Kelly?
those are the bad apples and bad seeds that we're talking about when referencing individuals like that, because they appear to have been brought up with no value of human life. Period. It don't have to be black, white, purple, or green, but no human life.
Right.
And they've grown up without that direct. I mean, it wasn't that it wasn't available to them.
Right.
They just didn't filter it in that area.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Now, Pastor Kelly. Pastor Kelly.
Are you there?
Pastor Kelly. Well, anyway, Pastor Bibbins. Anyway, we'll continue until he comes back back online. But anyway,
Yeah.
It's like you have like
They
you
didn't
call
filter it.
like you have like a genocide,
Mm-hmm.
and and therefore the police don't find themselves accountable. Like I said before, you have unions that protect the police.
Mm-hmm. And see, I'm gonna show you a good example. I lived in Compton. I bought my home in Compton in 78. I think it was 78. Yeah, it was 78 because we kept that house for 10 years. And what I was noticing about the narrative play that I was just talking about, in Compton, Long Beach, South Los Angeles, it was always the narrative of crime in the community. That was the highlight of the nightly news. It would be filtered right to your television. And this is indoctrination of your mind. And you're starting to believe it more and more, because just yesterday, there was a shooting on that block, and we don't know what's going to happen tonight, but we always hear gunshots. So now you've been indoctrinated, because you're going back and repeating the very same thing that they filtered to you just now on your television. This is why the Vietnam War was such an atrocity, because they were over there fighting for things that we thought were pertinent to survival.
Right.
And that's the communist enemy. That's the lie we were told. We were going to get some communists over there. They're invading some of our people, and we don't like it. Liar, pants burnt up and lost.
I see.
And that's what we had to deal with. Yeah, the Vietnam War, it was amazing, unbelievable.
Wow.
But yet still, after going there, it didn't change the reflection or the narrative of the black soldiers and the black service personnel when they returned home. It was still business as usual. You're still in the end category, and I still hang your ass from the highest rope in the tree if I chose to do so.
Right. Now, let me ask you.
So I came through that civil rights era, and I'm fortunate and grateful to have experienced that. That was life or death, man. And I recently went to DC to march for the increase in the national salary to $15 an hour.
Gotcha.
And we took two Streamliner buses to Mercedes-Benz buses, by the way, to Washington D.C. And we marched with our group. So yeah. It is one of those things when you are an activist, you have to be out there. You have to be vocal. You have to be spoken. You have to be acknowledged, because had Black Lives Matter not come along, John Lewis might have lived in infamy forever, getting beat over the head and getting his skull cracked at the status bridge. But that was just a beginning for a greater enhancement to the second most pertinent civil rights leader of our time.
Right.
And now that Black Lives Matter have brought that to the forefront, John Lewis now rests in infamy.
I agree. Now, Pastor Kelly.
Oh, I'm back. Yes, I'm back.
Okay,
All
now
right.
let me ask you a question, Pastor Kelly. Now you have, say, for instance, we have the Black Lives Matter movement that's trying to protect uh, black people from police, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let me ask you a question: what kind of movement is trying to protect black on black crime?
Say that again.
I see you have the Black Lives Matter to protect, us from the police brutality. Am I correct?
Uh-huh.
But what
That's right.
what what, what movement do you have to protect us from ourselves, from us killing each other, the gang members?
Well, the elderlies have to come out and basically it goes back to the relatives of
Amen. There you go. Because
those
it got to be.
those that are out there and participating.
Yeah.
I mean, if those are your family members, you know what I'm saying? You
There
talk
you
to them,
go. Hello.
be like, hey, this is not the smartest
Check this
thing,
out.
and
And
this
the
is
best
not the
thing always.
wisest thing to do.
Nope. Nope.
And if we killing each other,
And the
what is
purpose.
the purpose? What is the purpose
There you go, Pastor.
of
What is the purpose?
Black Lives Matter marching and protesting? Okay, now I understand protesting police brutality,
Right.
but then when it comes to police brutality, you can boycott and shut a lot of things down. But now, in regards to us dealing with each other, we have to go back and reach out to the younger generation.
There it is. Yes.
And do it in a fashion as in bringing them together, talking to them. I just went camping not too long ago, and I enjoyed it because it was close to about 50 or 60 of us out there.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And what I enjoyed about it is it wasn't no fighting, no shooting, nobody clubbing nobody over the head. You know what I'm saying? Nobody get belligerent. But it was done in a way to where we was showing the younger generation how they can still get together and go camping and have fun.
Okay.
And so it starts with the parents and grandparents.
There it
You
is.
can't be afraid of your children. You can't be afraid of your grandchildren. You can't be afraid of your nephew, your niece, or whoever. You can't be afraid of them.
Not indeed. Now you're not the leader of them. You're not.
But you have to be able to sit down and talk with them, even if the father wasn't there, or the mother wasn't there, or the grandparent had to raise them, or uncle, or auntie, whatever.
Exactly.
You still have to be able to talk to them and let them know that the street life, this gang life, is not the way to go.
I agree. Let me ask you a question. Hold on for a second. Let me interject something. I understand, but say for instance you have somebody that feel as though they have no family and they feel the gang life is their family. Number one, and number two, the gang life has reached out to them. Therefore, they actually are doing things to actually appease those in the gang. And therefore, because their family have not reached out to them or won't accept them as they are, and they accept the gang life has embraced it, they are now doing that which is destructible to the community. Now, I said a long time ago, you might not be able to get rid of the gangs, you're not going to get rid of all the killing and longest sins in the world. But if you can actually to unify the gang, we're actually making it into a nonprofit to help these young people, live out their dreams, and etc. The crime will go down tremendously.
And point well taken. And this is what I'm going to say. This is where the church failed.
Right.
In regards to being a leader and going and making and showing up instead of just preaching from behind the pulpit to get some pennies and some dollars or to get a retirement, but actually getting out there in the communities and actually coming together. And this is for all churches. I ain't just talking about one church. This is for all churches, all those that claim Christ Jesus as their Lord and personal Savior.
I agree.
Right, but I don't think they failed. They refuse to grow with the change of the
well, that brings about failure. That's still failure. Because if the old saying, reach one, teach one.
Right.
Okay. That still hold true from the time that I was coming up. Reach one, teach one. Okay? So what I'm saying is leaders
Yeah.
If leaders can get together and get together in what they call go on a retreat, okay, leaders should have also been able to get together, collaborate together from city to city, town to town, state to state, and be like, you know what I'm saying, yes, we are leaders, we pastors, bishops, or whatever you want to call yourself.
Uh-huh.
And going forward with the gospel, but also going forward with some structure.
Uh-huh.
Going forward with something to that's of value to give them instead of just saying, well, we're just gonna preach the word to you. No. You gotta, if you take a man fishing and teach him how to fish, guess what? He's gonna learn how to eat. He's gonna fish and he's gonna know how to catch his own fish.
Right.
But if you just give him a fish, he's just gonna eat for that day. That's gonna be gone.
That is so intuitive, because one of the things that the mission of the ministry of bringing together, and it's a combining of different talents and different individuals come into one house over a period of 3 to 5 hours a day, on a week, or if not more. And it presented a dialogue, it presented a fellowship. It did not provide the information on how distant they could be based on just that structure that you have just explained, of teaching them the word only and nothing else. It didn't look at that, and they should have done a wholesome look at what are we feeding these young people. I mean, we come up here, we sit up in the church 5 hours, they ready to go home.
Right.
And so our children grew up hating the church because. Exactly. They grew up hating it because we sit there 5 hours and then have anything else to offer them in that 5 hours. Like, y'all get up and go on over there and play some video game or something. None of that. Because it was such a sacrosanct place and sanctified place that there was no room for exposure. I'll just put it like that.
I can agree. I can agree. Like Mr. Bivens, it was like this right here. With each generation, you have to change with the time. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And I think actually, like when I was coming up, when I was coming up, we were in the church all day long, but then they got creative. You know, they had one new day, Sunday out of the month, where next thing you know, I'm the junior deacon. I'm a teenager, right? You know, but I'm a junior deacon.
Well, there are at Harvest Church in Elk Grove. Kudos to Harvest Church out there. They had 2 separate churches. They had a children's church and they had the adult church. Y'all go over there, adults, to the right, and sit there as long as you like. We're going over here to the babysitter. We're going here where we got games, and we can watch TV, and we can play little games for the kids, and we can run around and have fun. Bye. You know, and Harvest Church did have that structure.
Yeah, because
we were members there for a while.
Yeah, because I was coming up, you know, I got a chance to play musical instruments, junior deacon, and participate in church. So I personally feel if you allow those who are young to participate in church, you know, to give them something where they be able to use their gifts, talents, creativity, you know, it would be so boring.
As far as the young people are concerned, we want to sit here for 30 minutes, give our offering, and get the heck away from y'all and go across the hall here to the children's church. That was their whole thought. You know, we heard the word, bye.
I see.
And that's the way they structured it. They let them out, and the children were dismissed, and they be gone at the hour, getting out of there. And then the church almost get empty because half of them are kids.
Right.
And then you see all these empty spaces. You turn around, look around. Oh my God! You know, Harvest is a pretty large sanctuary. You turn around.
Look at it now. You look at it now. Churches, you know what I'm saying? They half empty, most empty, because now you have all the children that's on the outside instead of having them come inside and still teach them, you know, how to get a trade.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Instead of just shoving them through the educational system of society, but training them, you know what I'm saying, within the church. We have a lot of people inside the church that's skillful. We got a lot of people inside the church that work for the state, that work for, you know what I'm saying, doing this and doing that.
I agree.
Know how to do construction and so forth.
There's the church in Elk Grove. I mean, Oak Park.
And teach them and show them that they can become, somebody, even while they going to church and enjoy, because now they got something, what? Oh, they're excited about learning this and learning that and still getting some word up in them, still getting taught the gospel and bringing it to them instead of them just going out to society and just throwing them away and just saying, oh, well, if you come to church, the Lord will help you. Yeah, the Lord will help you. But guess what? Learning a trade will help you also.
I agree.
Right.
I agree with Paul.
How to fill out an application on the computer. Learning how to, do house chores. These are the things that still should have been taught and instilled in the children.
Yeah. There's my former church, the Greater Shiloh Baptist Church in Oak Park. My pastoral friend, Pastor Sadler, he has a program of that along that line where they help to train children not just in the ministry, but in the development of them as a human being. Think about scholarships for the young people. They have them go to college, get them in the trade school if they want. It's a really, really nice program, and it has the commitment of those other individuals there, which are doctors, attorneys, police officers, sheriffs, social workers, and so forth. So all of those skills are right there in this one place during these next 5 hours. Share it with the children.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, the problem you have is you have some of these preachers, all they want to do is preach. You know what I'm saying? Number one. And number two, you have some of these deacon ran churches where the deacons call the shots instead of the pastor with the vision of the Lord call the shot, So I'm saying, I know I can name churches on top of my head where if you just say, hey, we need some programs and let's try to reach these people and try to train them and try to give them some life learning skills, you have some deacons interfere. Well, who's gonna pay the light bill? So I'm saying all this other kind of mess.
Well, I know some wonderful, wonderful pastors in the Sacramento area, and I've been blessed to be a part of some of the greater ones. And so, we recognize those things. This is what's so interesting about this period we're living in, being woke. We recognize those things. And I was talking to a person yesterday. I was at the doctor's office. And pray for me, brother. The cancer thing is still relentless, but it's all good. I was at the hospital yesterday, my checkup, and I ran into a real close friend that used to be a member of my church, where I'm a member now. And it was saying, and we were talking, and it was like, if you're not working in that capacity and it's not working for you, you don't have to continue there, And so that's one of the things that people have to recognize. They don't have to continue there where it's not satisfying to them. They can move on.
I see.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what people do. And that's what the young people did. We started talking about our young people, and we're talking about how the lack of focus from some of the higher leaders have not settled in, or they haven't structured it properly yet, where it will reach out. But like I said, you have these skills. It takes a village. Share it with the young people.
Right. Yeah. And like we go and we show them how to plant seeds to grow a garden, grow their own food.
Well, those things are not funny to me any longer, because when I was coming up way back in the 50s and the 60s, we had the 4-H club. Yeah, I became a member of it. I was like, what are y'all doing over here? Digging in dirt. Come to find out, that's the most relaxing thing you can do in life, digging in dirt.
Well, I understand about the funding. But I'm talking about in general as, showing them, whether through church or whatever, in regard to giving them something to look forward to as they're growing up.
Yeah.
Back to what we were talking about in regard to the killing and whatnot. See, a lot of this would train them not to go out there and be so enthused to want to go out there and do violence, but also to share with their friends in regards to what they're learning, teaching them, showing them, how to grow food, planting seeds, that that really gets their attention. Like my grandson, when I go to the garden, he loves going to the garden with me
Oh,
because
really?
he knows because I'm showing him in regards to how we grow our food, planting the seed. You know, so this is something that you take him and you show him. You know, um, but at the same time, back to what we were saying in regards to the lack of, and this is what we get in regards to dealing with, police safety, in regards to protection. We get these wildfires growing up, and no respect for life, no regard for life. You know what I'm saying?
Now, we're social creatures. I'm not disagreeing, but we have to look at the social aspect of it. We're social creatures. We're talking about the evidence of information not being filtered down to our young people to give them that start. And then we're talking about the third phase of that, which is adolescent and into adulthood, where we can make our own choice in that. And we did. And that's what they did. They said, bye, but you're not giving me what I really, really need. I'll be here in your social club setting, so to speak, but you're going to have to share something with me, or else I'm down with somebody that with me.
I agree. I agree with you guys. What you're saying, what you said, Pastor Kelly, is very important. I can remember after my grandmother passed, my uncle Leo taught me how to do a garden. You know, so I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
and how to plant seed into the ground, and how to dig up the fallow ground, and how to plant seed. I can remember my
Well, yeah,
grandfather, with a young lady I'm married to, taught her how to barbecue.
these
Uh,
things have to
you
have
know,
a leader. If you want to start, you got. I've seen people that do exactly that. Set up barbecue. There's one guy in Los Angeles, one of the best barbecue makers, I believe, in south of anywhere. But he made some of the nicest barbecues, and they were made from a oil barrel. And I believe he lived in Compton, South Central, or something like that. But but he was known for making those wonderful barbecues,
okay.
and so that information just got filtered down into the neighborhood. So now we all buy our barbecue from John Barbecue or John Q, whatever the name of it was. I don't recall, but it is one of those things where if you don't share information, knowledge is power. We all found out there. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Well, how are you getting it? Who are you getting it from?
Right.
Hello? You know what I'm saying? Where you get it? Who are you getting it from? Is it the right knowledge? This is why critical race theory, they done put out the biggest scare tactic in the country. They don't even want to talk. They don't even mention it. CRT. We're going to cut it down to CRT because most people ain't going to know it's critical race theory. So we
Uh-huh.
just put the CRT and throw that out there. What's a CRT? A third? CRT. Look, they left the E out. Shut the hell up and sit your dumb ass down because you don't have, you're not on that platform, okay? You still don't know. Oh, my God. So anyway, these are the things that we have to, and one of the indoctrinations and we're talking about indoctrination, we have to let our people know we're not out here to back up on retribution, our 40 acres and a mule. We're not here to deny you anything.
Uh-huh.
But the thing about it, what makes institutionalized racism so bad looking and so horrible as it is, critical race theory simply says the information that's put out there. You can have a monument, such as a jail,
Uh-huh.
or you have the justice system, judges, but don't put the racist part in it. When I step before you, Mr. Judge, and you see I'm black, 25 years automatically ring up in your little head.
Wow.
But if I'm white, I may get 6 months probation. That's where the critical race theory developed its racial hinge. And no, we're not trying to teach your little white kid to come out being scared and acting like the little black kid going to attack them because of what your dumb ass did and your ancestors did to our culture.
Uh-huh.
We're not that kind of people. But we know that you can dwell on the edge of that themselves. You know,
Right.
people they dwell on the edge right there.
Right.
White supremacy, Black Lives Matter. Oh, White Lives Matter too. Oh, No kidding. All lives matter, but shut the hell up. We're trying to teach you something.
Right.
Black lives matter. Tell your daddy when he go to work and just try not to shoot his brother down in the street.
Right. Well, guys,
don't operate under the shield of blue. But
right.
That's just a little bit.
Right. Well, guys, I appreciate. Well, guys, I appreciate this. Podcast conversation. We need more of this. I'm gonna contact you guys later on to see what time we get next week.
Glad you're there, brother.
Pastor Kelly, right. You're gonna be actually busy next Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Well, I'll call you. We probably set something for next week. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you very much for actually tuning in, and for my audience. If you want to make a comment, you can email me at adpolive@gmail.com. That's a different perspective of life. That's adpolive@gmail.com. Until next time, stay blessed.
Peace.
All right.
Be blessed.